Hi everyone, this is Mari Craig, and you're listening to the Small Steps to Wellness show, a podcast where we discuss how we can achieve more wellness in our lives one small step at a time. For the past 6 odd years, I've taken a special interest in nutrition and I've changed the diet of my family on its head. But as I've dived deeper into the world of nutrition, I have learned that health is so much more than just what we put on our plate. This is why on this podcast we will be talking nutrition, mental health, being in alignment, holistic health care, self care, raising children, and more. We will also be hearing stories of women's journeys to overcome trauma and what it has taught them on the way. When we share our stories, we realize we are not alone and that things can change for the better. I'm so glad to have you with me on this journey as I explore what health and wellness truly encompass. If you like what you're hearing, please consider rating the show with a 5-star rating and sharing it with your friends. It really makes a big difference. Now, on with today's show. Hello, and welcome to the Small Steps to Wellness show with me, your host, Mari Craig, where we discuss how we can achieve more wellness in our lives, one small step at a time. I haven't really on this podcast talked much about my own journey and also not much about why this podcast is called Small Steps to Wellness. But that name came when I reflected upon the journey I've been on. When I was actually setting up an Instagram account, I was thinking, what phrase or what if I had to set up a website, if I had to have a business name, what would explain, go some way to explain anyway, the journey I've been on? And the phrase small steps to wellness came up. Um, I have never really been massively health conscious. I mean, I grew up in a family where we had good food, but I don't think any of us knew much about food and how it can support us. I think we understood the value of eating your vegetables, but it was only to the extent of it's good for you. Um, my mum, I remember, she always said, I try not to eat after 6 o'clock because it helps me, to feel better. And me, growing up in Norway, we have this thing called evening food, which is kind of a supper, I suppose. Bit of bread, maybe a glass of milk, a little bit something, a couple of hours before you go to bed. And it's like actually what one of my kids likes the best about Norway. It's going to Norway to have kveldsmat. So for me, not eating after 6 o'clock seemed insane. I mean, now I understand where it was coming from. But I didn't grow up with a whole lot of knowledge about what we can do food-wise in order to nourish ourselves. So, and it might seem insane actually saying that out loud, but that's how it was. And I don't think it was until my early 30s that I started learning about the connection. And growing up, I had, especially as a teenager onwards, I had an awful lot of headaches all the time. And the amount of paracetamols and ibuprofens I've taken in my life, I mean, it's quite horrendous thinking back how much I took, not as in one go, but over a long period of time, and how not once did I stop to think, this is a bit messed up. But we live and learn. So I just wanted to share a little bit of my story. I have not experienced any massive trauma or anything like that, but I think I kind of grew up from my teenage years onwards, kind of wanting to be a little slimmer, and I've certainly done my fair share of trying to lose weight and eating less and moving more and all those things. And I think also, and I can't remember what age I was or how this started, but I was even like doing this sort of weight loss shakes at one point. And now thinking back, my gosh, I mean, it's so messed up. But I understand kind of that from my limited knowledge how that came to happen. Anyway, in my 20s and up until early 30s, I was of the, well, I thought that if I wanted to lose weight, that I was going to have to work really, really, really hard. And I never thought about eating healthily for the sake of health. I thought about eating less to lose weight. And I think probably a lot of you listening will recognize this in yourselves, maybe not where you are now, but where you were. So I didn't understand the connection between food and mental health, between food and, well, gosh, belly fat, between food and just feeling on top form until I probably had my second child. So I've done the eating little and often. I've done the eating only 500 calories at each meal. I've done, eating very little. But I didn't understand that it's about the combination of what you eat, maybe how often you eat, and maybe the balance of the macros in what you eat that really makes a difference. I was never into exercising, because, no, that's a lie, but I didn't enjoy the stuff I thought I needed to do in order to lose weight. And it was only when I stopped caring about the weight that I started to lose it, funnily enough, because I'd had my second child and something told me to go on this postnatal 6-week course where we did exercise, but we also looked at what foods we were eating and how we could nourish ourselves better postpartum. And that was kind of the starting point for me. I don't know what possessed me to sign up to this class. There must have been something in the way that this woman was selling it that made me think I want to be a part of it. And I'm really grateful to that person for setting up that class, because it taught me a few things about what foods can really benefit me and can really serve me. And because I was part of a group, the whole idea of, let's say, one thing we did was give up caffeine for 6 weeks. The whole idea of doing that was less daunting because we were all doing things together. And I've seen the power of doing things in a group ever since, because doing any changes on your own can be really hard. Doing it as a group where you're all accountable to each other and to yourself, and you want to support each other, it's much easier. So anyway, so that's kind of how things started for me. I used to love baking cakes, nothing fancy looking, but just tasty stuff. And so the whole small steps to wellness came from the fact that I started thinking, I wonder if I could add a little less sugar to this recipe, or I wonder if I can, replace some of the white flour with wholemeal flour. Would it still taste nice? And that's kind of how the journey began. Then I think it must be November, October, perhaps 2015. So I had a very young baby. I was introduced to the Juice Plus Whole Food capsules that I've since become an affiliate with the company. But back then, it was my friend who introduced them to me because I had this horrible cold and this cough. I just could not shift it. And when you've just given birth, that sneezing and coughing and having a cold is really not something you want to have. And so I started taking these whole food capsules, and I bought a tubal version for my eldest daughter, who was then nearly 3. And I noticed a change in her quite quickly. She had a more regular bowel movement. She got strongest, hair, nails, skin got better. With me, I wasn't very good at taking them, so I didn't notice much at all. But then once I got better at taking them, after a few months, I noticed that I had more energy. And that winter cold, the reason why I started, that never came back. And it's 7.5 years ago that I started taking these capsules. But then alongside this course, alongside starting on these whole food capsules, I started learning more about what it means to be truly healthy. And the whole idea of wanting to lose weight had gone, and instead I embarked upon this journey of seeing where can I make little tweaks to my diet that means that I can eat really well, but I can also fuel my body with the nutrients that it needs. And so I started making some smoothies for breakfast. I started adding more seeds to my diet. I cut back on the pasta. You know, the amount of pasta I used to eat, you know, those ready-made tortellinis and stuff, they taste delicious. And 2 hours later, you're starving again. So I cut back on that. I never eliminated anything, but I cut back on a lot of things. And I felt great. I felt so much better in myself. And I felt as if I could eat an awful lot more and not worry, because my sort of ideal weight in Norwegian, we've got this saying called trivselsvekt. It's basically a weight where you are comfortable. And that weight for me used to always be a little on the higher side. Anything below this weight, I now had to really work for it. And all of a sudden, this weight that I was happily able to keep was 5 kilos lower, so 10 pounds plus lower than it used to be. Because I actually stopped caring about it. And so back to the small steps to wellness, this has always been my mission from day one. I know some people are an all or nothing person, but from my experience, starting with the smaller steps means that you are more able to incorporate that small step into a new habit, and you're more able to hold on to it and then add on top of it whatever else you want to do. So I started with my cakes, and then actually, to be honest, I stopped them making the cakes and I started making things like healthier flapjacks instead, or I made like raw chocolate cakes with lots of nuts and seeds in. And I started thinking, okay, what other vegetable can I add to my plate? You know, Dr. Rupi, he talks about just add one more, one more. What one more can you add to your plate? And I think people who meet me now might not know that I I didn't used to have all this energy. I didn't used to feel as light and energetic and kind of well in myself as I do now. Um, and I don't know if it seems that things come easily to me, but it has been a long process, and it's been a process of building up new habits, one small step at a time, slowly, and then kind of incorporating things that I know that I can sustain. And this is why also when people ask me how do I lose weight quickly, or how many calories and this and that and all the rest of it, I don't have time to deal with that stuff. The moment you stop focusing on weight and instead find a proper why as to why you want to change things around, I think that's the key to making long lasting changes. So my why, whether it started with, I just want to get rid of this bloody cold. And then as I realized the power of food, it was, I want to have more energy. I want to reduce my risk of lifestyle disease. Because once you learn about that, you can't unlearn it. Once you understand the connection between food and chronic illness, you can't unlearn it. And so my why wasn't, I want to have my happy weight 10 pounds lower than it's normally been. My why became, I want to do everything in my power that is sustainable for me, that still allows for indulgences. I want to do everything in my power to reduce my risk as much as possible of these chronic illnesses that are all over our society at the moment. And this is what I am now helping others do, shining a light on what I've done, in the hope to inspire you or others to take those small, sustainable steps to wellness and better health. Very soon, I'm going to be embarking on another cleanse, and this is something that I've been doing since 2016. It's a 10-day cleanse where we do eliminate a few things for 10 days, and we add in quite a few things, and we focus on not just food, but sleep and movement and mindfulness and hydration. And it has been a catalyst for me for even more change positively. to my body and my mind. And I cannot recommend that 10-day cleanse enough. It has been a catalyst for so many people I know to make long-lasting changes. It's doable, it's family friendly. It doesn't require anything fancy. It is just a different way of thinking about your health, really. So that's it. That's really been my journey. I haven't, as I said, I haven't experienced anything traumatic health-wise. But I remember what it's like to fall asleep on the sofa, to fall asleep next to your children when they've gone to bed, to always feel tired, always think, oh, I could do it just 10 more minutes in bed, or having the annual winter cold that just doesn't want to shift. And I thought these things were normal. I thought that's just kind of what it's supposed to be like. But the difference to how I'm feeling now is quite stark, actually. So know that you don't have to have anything massively sort of wrong with you, in inverted commas, to make changes. Don't settle for, falling asleep on the sofa every night. There are things you can do to help yourself get more energy and just feel a bit more vibrant than you might think is possible. If this is something that you'd like to talk to me about, then please head over to my Instagram account. It's probably the easiest way to reach me. It's just at Small Steps to Wellness. And I'd love to hear from you, and we can have a little chat about what changes you would like to make and maybe see if that's something we can do together. So I'd love to hear from you. Until then, this has been the Small Steps to Wellness show. Take care. You've been listening to the Small Steps to Wellness show with Mari Craig. I am passionate about helping mums get their energy back through simple nutritional changes, because we know that if mummy is happy, the family is happy. If you would like to connect with me, you can find me on Instagram under @smallstepstowellness, or visit my website, smallstepstowellness.info. Speak to you soon.